President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the suspension of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, and the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ambassador Ayoke. State House correspondent Maria Olashende tells us more about the drama that ensued at the villa after the SGF met with Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. But joining us now from Abuja is the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu. Thank you for joining us this time. Now, Mr. Shehu, the presidency had initially cleared the SGF of this allegation leveled against it. Why has it suddenly reached this epiphany and decided to suspend Mr. Lawal?
Communication that the president sent to the National Assembly concerning the Secretary to the Government, Babachir Lawal, was misconstrued by many people. At no point did the president say he had cleared the SGF. What the president wrote to say in that communication was that he had been informed by Mr. Babachir Lawal that he had received a fair hearing from the Senate committee and that this SGF deserved a fair hearing. And I guess that's why the Senate accepted to provide the SGF with a chance to be heard.
And do you believe the SGF has been given a chance to be heard now?
Well, you know that the Senate had appointed a date for him to make an appearance. There was some confusion concerning all of that, and they said that they had postponed the hearing and they will appoint a new date for him. As we speak now, the Senate has not called back Mr. Babachir Lawal to speak on those issues.
Now, Mr. Babachir Lawal says he hasn't been informed about any suspension. In fact, he retorted to reporters earlier on today that who is the presidency? How come this is so?
Well, again, our idea is not to engage in back and forth on this matter. Let me just give you this account. The tradition of President Muhammadu Buhari in dealing with all of the removals, including those of the military and so on, he has instituted a practice by which nobody hears of their own removal from office on the radio or television. He insists that each individual must be informed beforehand so that they too will let members of their family and staff know. But certainly the president has introduced some decency into this. And I am aware that this statement did not go out as early as it was issued because all of the parties needed to have been contacted before it was issued. And it didn't go out until exactly 1 p.m.
But if he hadn't heard, why was the meeting with the vice president necessary? Because that seemed hurried.
Well, as I said, again, what has happened has happened. We will not engage the SGF in any exchanges except to say to you that the president has set a very strong and strict record since he came to the office. Nobody will be fired or radio or changed from their position by the mass media. They must be informed. And I'm aware that as early as 10 o'clock, this statement was ready, but it never was issued until 1 p.m. And the idea was that all of them must be reached, informed that this had happened.
Mr. Lawal, this suspension having carried out before the fair hearing that you said the president was desirous of, and after so much criticisms, many of the critics of this administration say that the Buhari administration is wary of criticisms, and that's why it's carried out this suspension. That's why it's taking this long to carry out this suspension. What are your thoughts on this?
No, on the contrary, it is a testimony to the president's strict adherence to the due process of the law, to fairness and equity. Because if the president was in a haste and felt under pressure, he would have removed or sent the SGF on suspension on the basis of the interim report. But having said that this report was an interim one, the Senate itself, they knew they owed it to the president to put before him a final report, which, as I speak to you, hasn't come in as at now. I'm not blaming them for the delay in this action. But if the president had received that final report earlier than now, he will have acted on it. However, it would seem to me that the president is now determined to get his own report, and on the basis of which now he now asks the vice president to lead this committee to go and investigate and report back to him.
Now, this cleansing that is seeming to start and for which many are commending the Buhari administration, how far-reaching will it be?
Well, I guess this is the highest it can get to. I mean, people who have both doubts in their own minds, I think they no longer have that justification. In the pecking order of the presidency, you know that the secretary to the government is the third highest ranking official in the executive arm of the government. If the president would do this as an act of courage, really, and it sends out that message that no one henceforth is beyond the reach of the war against corruption, and they better not indulge in it.
Mr. Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media, thank you for your time.
Thank you
Moving
very
ahead
much.
now.